There are some things about this ecosystem that have made it over the years work, and it's taken a long time. So the first investment, I'm sure Brian will talk about this, but the first investment really was sort of back in, actually spin out stuff a long time ago. So the first spin out of technology we talk about often was the printing press, because Cambridge University Press was involved in printing books a long time ago.
Good news is I'm not going to go through 2,000 years of history year by year, you'll be pleased to know, so I'm going to jump forward a bit to a key point which may have been covered already in the previous slide previous presentation by Andy, but 1209, key date when some scholars left Oxford and came over to Cambridge and established the first college. This is university's first spin-out, I think, Cambridge University Press, set up by a charter from King Henry VIII. So, although entrepreneurship and the technology cluster in some ways is relatively recent, actually you could argue it goes back several hundred years. 1961 is the year we would argue was the start of the Cambridge phenomenon. So you could almost argue that Cambridge Consultants, when it was first created, was kind of the technology transfer office for the university. In the 70s, we had Cambridge Science Park, which was one of the first science parks in Europe. Started to see the emergence of the first computer entrepreneurs. And we've got a picture here. So Andy mentioned Hermann Hauser. This is the Hauser Forum. So that's university became formally involved in IP commercialisation. So the rules changed, the university took ownership of the IP. CB1, so that's the core part of the city. 30% of people there work in knowledge-intensive sectors, so it's a very, very knowledge-based environment. A lot of companies, knowledge-intensive companies within the Cambridge cluster, coming up to 5,000. Now these numbers keep changing literally day by day and week by week. And if you had more time and were able to go around Cambridge, you'd see stuff growing everywhere. When you think that the population of the city of Cambridge is about 125,000, you can see that there's a big chunk of the population working for these firms. So the combined turnover from companies within the cluster is around about 11 or 12 billion per year. So that has a major impact, not just on the local economy, but on the UK economy as well. You know, the university is part of the ecosystem, but it doesn't try to do everything. So it's not trying to fit all of the different requirements of the cluster. It says let's have an environment where others step in, and in the very early days it was Cambridge Consultants, a couple of guys said, right, we'll take this opportunity. More technical consultancies came along, and they provided this channel to the market for university knowledge, and that's the Cambridge Consultants building there. They also started to spin out other companies. Some of them were competitors, so in typical cluster behaviour, people move away from their companies, they set up in competition, so we've got TTP, Technology Partnership, Scientific Generics, PA Consultant and so forth. So creating this sort of cluster of technical consultancies, but they also started to create subclusters. So inkjet printing is very important in Cambridge. The early technologies spun out of Cambridge consultants, and now there's a sort of subcluster around printing technology, and now moving into 3D printing. Professional service providers, so these are the accountancy firms, these are the IP attorneys, these are the law firms, marketing and consultancy firms for business development, a whole range of resources that are absolutely critical to business success. So we now have 19 business parks, we've got 6 science parks, and now 11 incubators and accelerators. And that last number is interesting because literally in the last 12 to 18 months, that number has doubled, I think, from, it was about 5 or 6, and it's now nearly a dozen. So there's an increasing support resource, physical support resource, with mentoring as well through these incubators and accelerators.
Hoy un poquito más sobre cómo funcionamos en la oficina de transferencia de tecnología, que es CompluEmprende, y más sobre todo cómo funcionamos en el fondo de capital riesgo, que es C-Funds, dentro de CompluEmprende. Si habéis estado aquí ya un tiempo, seguro que ya habéis escuchado sobre la universidad, 800 años de historia. La misión de la universidad es contribuir a la sociedad a través de la investigación y los resultados de investigación y la educación. Y para ello se creó entonces CompluEmprende, que es la oficina de transferencia de tecnología de la universidad. La misión de CompluEmprende es ayudar a comercializar todo el conocimiento de la universidad en la sociedad, crear impacto en la sociedad, ayudar a los empleados y a los estudiantes a comercializar sus resultados de investigación y también crear un retorno financiero para la universidad, los departamentos y el personal. Esta es un poco la estructura de CompluEmprende. Tenemos como 3 principales unidades. La primera de ellas es consultoría, consultancy services, y lo que hacen ellos es trabajar con académicos de la universidad que quieren prestar sus conocimientos a empresas externas. La otra unidad de la oficina de transferencia de tecnología es Technology Transfer, que llamamos, que son los que trabajan con las patentes. Ellos son los que trabajan con los académicos que tienen algo que puede ser comercializable. En ese sentido, entran en contacto con nuestros compañeros de Technology Transfer, ellos evalúan si hay algo que se puede proteger, si algo se puede proteger, trabajan con agentes de patentes para proteger esto y luego estudiar cómo se va a comercializar. Hacen una especie de due diligence, de análisis de la oportunidad para ver cuál es la mejor forma de comercializar esto, si a través de un spin-off o a través de licencia a una empresa grande. Somos el fondo de capital riesgo de la universidad. Y os voy a hablar un poquito más en cómo funcionamos dentro del fondo de capital riesgo de la universidad. Nosotros lo que hacemos, he intentado dividir aquí en 4 principales cosas que hacemos en cuanto a apoyar académicos que quieren crear empresas en la universidad. No solo proporcionamos dinero, que es una de las razones por las que vienen a nosotros, por supuesto, pero también ayudamos a desarrollar su propuesta, les ayudamos a poner en valor su tecnología y les ayudamos a conseguir un equipo para liderar esa propuesta. Les ayudamos nosotros personalmente, pero también tenemos una figura que es muy importante, que en realidad la creamos hace un año, poco más de un año, 14 meses, que son los Entrepreneurs in Residence, emprendedores en residencia, sería la traducción, por entiendo. Que son, tenemos 2, uno de Life Sciences y otro de Physical Sciences. Y son personas que vienen un día a la semana a trabajar con nosotros porque tienen sus propias empresas, porque hacen sus propias cosas. Ellos fueron emprendedores antes crearon varias empresas, tienen el conocimiento de cómo crear las empresas, cómo ayudarles a crecer y cómo venderlas también, y están dispuestos ahora a venir a ayudar a académicos de la universidad a hacerles entender el proceso por el que van a tener que pasar cuando crean estas empresas. Desde el año 95, cuando la universidad empezó a crear el primer fondo, hemos tenido como diferentes iniciativas, 3 principales iniciativas que nos han dado diferentes cantidades de dinero, en total sobre 8,5 millones de libras. El fondo de capital riesgo oficialmente como CompluEmprende se creó en el 2000, pero desde esos 8 millones que teníamos desde el principio, con las varias salidas que hemos tenido, que he supuesto ahí algunas de las más recientes, ahora tenemos 14 millones para invertir. Entonces, la ventaja de ser un fondo verde es que cuando desinviertes, si te va bien, cuando desinviertes tienes más dinero para volver a invertir en otras empresas. Como 3 principales niveles de inversión, cantidades de dinero que les damos a las empresas. El primero es lo que llamamos Pathfinder, que es hasta 20.000 libras en préstamos participativos convertibles. Y esto normalmente lo utilizamos para ayudarles a desarrollar su propuesta de inversión. Lo que decía antes, muchas veces vienen con una tecnología que parece interesante, parece muy interesante, pero no sabemos realmente dónde se va a aplicar. Este dinero les ayuda a desarrollar una especie de plan de negocio, consultores, part-time, ellos son los que normalmente ayudan a poner este plan de negocio en forma. Después tenemos un segundo nivel de inversión, que también es un préstamo participativo convertible, que es lo que llamamos Fast 50, en realidad no son 50.000, sino 75.000 libras, y que inicialmente se pensó que sería para empresas de software, porque no necesitan mucho dinero. Lo que les hace falta es dinero rápido, pero no necesitan mucho dinero en general. Entonces, tiene que ser una propuesta que estaría cercana ya a un proyecto que llevaríamos al comité, o sea, una propuesta seria y ya desarrollada, pero que le hace falta conseguir unos objetivos antes de que esté listo para buscar inversión ya en capital. Y después tenemos las inversiones en capital normales. Normalmente las primeras fases son 250.000 libras y podemos llegar a invertir hasta 1 millón por empresa, que con el fondo, el IAS Fund que os mencionaba antes, puede llegar a ser hasta 2 millones, porque ellos coinvierten con nosotros en el mismo nivel normalmente. El equipo en el Seed Funds, o sea, el equipo del fondo, nuestro equipo, es el que toma la decisión de si les damos el préstamo participativo o no, y en las inversiones en capital, en realidad tienen que venir ya al comité de inversiones, o sea que ya es un proceso más elaborado y más desarrollado. Y además la universidad tiene Cambridge Innovation Capital, que es un fondo, un follow-on fund, o sea un fondo más tardío de inversión en empresas alrededor de Cambridge, no solo empresas de la universidad, en el que la universidad es un inversor dentro de esta empresa de capital riesgo, que es Cambridge Innovation Capital, pero hay otros inversores. Tenemos que invertir en cosas que tengan vinculación con la universidad. Como os podéis imaginar, invertimos de la universidad, entonces tiene que tener algún tipo de relación con la universidad. A lo largo de la historia hemos desarrollado como 3 niveles de preferencia en ese sentido. Tecnologías, el primero es las tecnologías que pertenecen a la universidad. Tecnologías que se han desarrollado aquí, por gente que trabaja aquí y que pertenecen a la universidad. Y que la universidad licenciará al spin-off. También podemos invertir en cosas que desarrollan empleados o académicos de la universidad en su tiempo libre, que son de los empleados o académicos, pero que no pertenecen a la universidad. Y luego podemos invertir también en proyectos de antiguos alumnos de la universidad, pero tiene que ser muy reciente y algo relacionado con lo que hicieron en la universidad. Tienen que ser proyectos también en los que puedan atraer a otros capitales riesgo, porque nuestro fondo solo invierte 1 millón de libras, o 2 millones si contamos el de Spam. Necesitamos que sean proyectos que vayan a poder atraer otros capitales riesgo. Van a necesitar probablemente más dinero que 1 millón. Entonces necesitamos que sean interesantes para otros capitales riesgo que coinviertan con nosotros. Por eso también digo a mí que podemos invertir solos, pero nos gusta mucho coinvertir, o con business angels o con otros capitales riesgo. Porque los business angels aportan mucho conocimiento del sector y mucho mentoring, ayudan mucho, y los capitales riesgo tienen, aquí decimos deep pockets, tienen más dinero en sus bolsillos. Son capaces de invertir más allá de lo que nosotros podemos invertir y van a ser capaces de llevar a la empresa más adelante.
Nosotros hemos empezado este año con un fondo, con un pequeño capital que no tiene nada que ver con los capitales que estás hablando, pero en definitiva lo que se trataba es de hacer un proyecto piloto para intentar fomentar el emprendimiento tanto de las startups de alumnos y de egresados como de las empresas de base tecnológica o de las spin-off de la universidad. Y en principio ese programa piloto pues lo que quiere es facilitar esa pata financiera, en definitiva para fidelizar también de alguna manera a las empresas, porque un poco lo que nos pasa a nosotros es que las empresas se crean y desaparecen, ¿no? Es decir, todavía no tenemos esa capacidad de que las empresas formen parte de nuestro propio ecosistema. Entonces, bueno, hubo una oportunidad que te comentaba antes con el Banco Santander, y eso es lo que hemos hecho. Ahora mismo tenemos a otra de las técnicos del equipo, está en Madrid gestionando, evaluando el proyecto.
It's kind of an 800-year-old university town, give or take. The roads haven't gotten much better. I'm not sure if you've travelled around the city in the last couple of days, but it's fairly horrible. So we think of Ideaspace as a place. It's also an economic cluster, so about value add to the UK economy. It's about the same as Rolls-Royce, which I'm not sure is a good or a bad thing. But also it's kind of this aspiration or this idea that Cambridge ideas change the world. And we've been claiming good ideas for many, many centuries now. I wouldn't claim that we actually are the originators of. And there are things like DNA and computing and all the way through. But the real question is, although there's ideas and there's bright people, how do you harness them and how do you do something with it? I should say, Ideaspace, along with Cambridge Enterprise, we are 2 of 123 different initiatives in the university that provide support to entrepreneurs and innovation programs. So kind of what I talk about is specifically about what we do, not trying to be representative of the entire offering, either within Cambridge or the university. So we think of the jobs of innovators are to discover innovations, the job of entrepreneurs are really to create new organizations. So it's not a startup, but a startup is just an organization that hasn't quite reached maturity yet, and hopefully there's some sort of rapid growth there. And then when we talk about founders, we mean the people that are leading the business model discovery process. So we try very much to say, we don't focus on the stuff at the top, that's the thing that our people do. So we very much focus on the people, so how do we help people discover what it means to be leaders of this process? How to create a supportive community around them, and how do we help them in their personal development? So I mean something very specific when I say arrogant. I mean unfounded belief. So if you think you're going to discover something or do something that's never been done in the world, you've got to be fairly arrogant. That's fairly unfounded. But you've got to be humble in the way that you approach that arrogance. You know, you can't take anything for granted. You've got to work for people. You've got to invite them in. You've got to accept help. You've got to be optimistic that you can discover the answer over time, but you've got to be skeptical every step on the way, because any unfounded assumption you make will kill your company. And finally, you've got to be impatient. You know, if you just let the world or people change the way that they want to change, we could be here to the next millennium. But the heart of all of this is the idea of a community space. We're not an office space, we're not an accelerator, we're not an incubator. It's a place that we can bring the community together. We started here, so I joined the university 8 years ago. We opened our first office 7 years ago. We've now got about 93 members just down the corridor here. In theory, they're not always here. We opened our city centre office about 4 years ago. And the reason we opened the second office was when we filled up our first office, we looked at the members we had at the time. 30% of our members had come directly out of the university. 40% of our members started companies outside of the university but joined us to work with someone in the university, and 30% had no relationship to the university other than through us. And then last year we opened our third office at the university hospital down at the biomedical campus, which means that we have an office within a 15-minute walk of every department here in Cambridge. It's about Ideaspace. It's very important for my team and I to remember it's not about Ideaspace. You know, it's not about us. And unfortunately for my founders, it's not even about them. It's about the teams, and it's about how do they come together to help each other over time, how do they share their knowledge, their connection, and their learnings.
Cambridge we have a huge number of companies. Many of them are growing fairly quickly. Some of them are well-known names to you, such as we've got Nokia or Microsoft, for example. Both have offices here in Cambridge and both are members of ours. We work across all sectors, I would say. A lot of them we've put there that are sort of high-tech. They could be medical technologies, they could be IT. Conscious of time. So what do? We do this. It started 18 years ago with a website. As everybody starts with a website. It's an A to Z directory of quite a lot of the high-tech companies in and around Cambridge. When members join us, they can publish their own information, so their own news, their own jobs, events that they're running, etc. So we have about 1,000 members, 1,000 companies are members. So one of the things we do to get people together is run lots of events. We do what we call business lectures, which tend to be about 10 a year, and there may be up to 200 people who come along to those. Lovely events, dinners, etc., workshops, that sort of thing. So I think this is what you were after. We have sort of three main areas, four main areas. So we have one is the website and the directory and the membership stuff. The second thing is bringing people together in the events. The third thing, we do lots of training for our companies as well. So we have a training arm. We do courses where anybody can book on, so members will get preferential rates for those courses, and a lot of them are management development type courses. We can train overseas. Lots of companies have, they want to replicate their training here and in their, say, US office or Singapore office, and we can send the trainers over there to give them the same training. Peer learning groups. This was the idea of one of our directors, actually, David Cleveley. He's a serial entrepreneur in Cambridge, and actually we have a lot of people in Cambridge who have grown up, launched a company or two, started off something within the university, and they stay around in Cambridge and they help out the younger generation, which is fantastic. We're not an agency, but what we try and do is actually get everybody meeting each other and swilling about, so we hold lots of jobs fairs. And we also run employment law updates for HR managers. So I've said four things: website and profile, marketing staff, we've got the events and meeting, we've got the training, we've got the recruitment, and then we have this other kind of area to our business. It's mostly our CEO who represents Cambridge business, or has a voice for Cambridge business on our local councils and local government as well. So there's several business and a few university people who sit on those sort of forums, so she represents those. We sometimes meet Cambridge business visitors and others, such as yourself, and that is me. That's who I am.
Cambridge Science Park is the UK's, I think, might even be Europe's oldest, and certainly our largest science park. It was founded in the early 1970s. In a typical Cambridge story, it was created on a piece of land that had been owned by one of the Cambridge colleges for almost 500 years. They owned the land, they didn't really have a very good purpose for it. It had been used for various purposes in the past, including in the Second World War. But it had very little value. And in the late 1960s, the UK government began to suggest to universities that they should perhaps interact more with businesses. Prior to that, nobody was interested in that. The south side of Cambridge and the area between Cambridge and London has quite a long history of pharmaceutical activity and bioscience research activity. There are various research centres there. And for that reason, most of the science parks to the south of Cambridge are also bioscience focused. In the early days, people tended to build speculatively. They tended to put a building up and then try to find a company to occupy it. I don't know how much you know about science park development, but modern science parks don't do that anymore, or very little of that. What they tend to do is they find the company that wants to be there and then together design a building that suits that company, and then the company will take a long lease, a long agreement to occupy that building for maybe 10, 15, 20, 25 years even. We created science parks mainly to attract businesses from outside, and then at some point we reached the stage where we thought we're actually creating quite a lot of startup businesses here in Cambridge. We haven't got good physical facilities for them. They're too small to be on a science park. They can't rent a whole building like this. There wasn't very much business accommodation available in the city itself. 15 years after Cambridge Science Park started in 1987, St John's Innovation Centre was founded, and it took a long time for anyone else to do something similar. I worked at for St John's Innovation Centre, actually started there in 1998, and prior to that nobody else was running an incubator, even though this place was very successful. And I always thought, why is that? It's weird, it's strange, why is nobody else doing this? And I've never really found an answer to that question, but I do know that since then a lot of people have decided to do the same thing. Then Idea Space was created by the university. The university became interested in supporting innovation and entrepreneurship in the early part of this century, so they created that particular accelerator. Then we had a virtual initiative by the business school. Andy Neely mentioned it this morning, Accelerate Cambridge. Doesn't provide any offices or workshops, it just provides mentoring, some training sessions, advisory services, and maybe a place somewhere in the corner of the business school to sit for a little while every day if you want. The college owns the surrounding land and over time has created a number of buildings around the incubator that were initially, most of them were initially designed as science park type buildings with one company occupying them. What we found was that actually the large companies didn't want to occupy these buildings. It was the medium-sized ones that needed them, and they were too big for them. So the buildings have in many cases been partitioned so that they're now multi-occupancy, but not for startups, but for medium-sized businesses. These are the facilities, and you might say, well, there's nothing unusual there, but there is value in the fact that all of these things are in one place. And that by having all these things in one place, you're taking a lot of the hassle out of the company move. If the company comes in here, they don't have to go and arrange their own broadband and arrange their own telephone service and find a place to have lunch and find somebody who can send parcels for them. That's all dealt with in this building. And quite deliberately, this centre allows typically between 15 and 20% of the space to be occupied by support service providers. And that comes back to this idea of creating a community where people can interact, where they can benefit from each other's expertise and support and experience. The business school runs a number of initiatives, educational programs, summer schools, lecture series, as well as the accelerator. So they are very active, particularly on the educational front. And then we have two entrepreneurship societies that are entirely run by students. They were started by students, they were run by students. One of them focuses primarily on business plan competitions for students, and the other one more on events, workshops, conferences, and lectures, and things like that. So there's a lot going on in Cambridge on this front, and I have managed to time this perfectly, if I say so myself. Because we actually have a few small businesses that would like to talk to you about what they do and tell you a little bit about how they've used the support that's available in Cambridge.
I think it would be good to do it in English, because my company, ELT Jam, the ELT stands for English Language Teaching. So we come from the world. This is the industry acronym for, or an abbreviation in fact, for English Language Teaching. My name is Nick Robinson. My company is based between here and Spain. So our belief is that as AI becomes more popular, as it becomes more powerful as a tool, that much of language learning, the basic language learning, like going on holiday and stuff, we'll just do it with apps, we'll do it with our phone. We won't need to learn those basic things. And for those organisations that stay in language education, they're going to compete on the quality of the experience they deliver. So, as a company, what do we do with that whole idea? Well, for us, learner experience design, or LXD, we like to call it, that's our kind of nickname for it, it acts as a kind of central core to lots of different activities that we do as a business. And many of these activities are designed to help early stage education startups, smaller companies and entrepreneurs in education. So I'll just explain very briefly some examples of these things. So we've developed a model that we call venture services, where we offer our services for free or for a heavy discount in return for equity in their business.
I'll show you first what we're doing, and then talk about the experience of Cambridge and how the Cambridge ecosystem has helped us. Basically, our app, it's in we've been developing an application that it combines sort of video learning, which you get everywhere, together with testing, where for mathematics testing you need quite special facilities in order to teach mathematics at 16 to 18, and graphical technology. So we're trying to combine a lot of different forms of content, and the purpose is that if you teach something in many ways, then everyone will be able to grasp it in some way, and the understanding is going to be firmer, and it'll be more enjoyable if there are things that you can interact with as you're learning. The Accelerator program, it helped us understand the steps we need to do to form a company, to get a team involved, and to connect with the market. We're still, of course, at an early stage, and so we're still learning a lot.
So I'm head of growth for StuCom. We were founded 3 years ago in the Netherlands, and what we essentially do is we centralise the existing systems the university is using. There's usually multiple logins, lots of different systems across various different login points, and we put them into a mobile application. So we connect with the existing systems, we don't replace them, and yeah, in doing so we give the student a much more sort of streamlined experience. They can use that application wherever they are on the go. Sort of the final sort of key points about us is we can integrate with any system. So we've integrated with 150 different APIs to date across the 30 institutions we work with. So we're very well versed at connecting with all magnitude of systems. So yeah, the fact that students are using it 5 times a day on average is fantastic vindication of what we're doing. So looking at some of our clients, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the Dutch university market, but we essentially work with all of the top schools in Holland, and we've just signed our first 3 customers in the UK, also 1 in Germany, and I'm off to Spain actually on Friday to speak with 3 Spanish universities, so we're hoping to have our first Spanish university very soon. Mini computers that you can set up in rooms, and they send signals to your phone, so the beacons connect with your timetable. They know that you should be in that room, they send you a notification and say you need to register for this lecture, and then bang, you're registered. Then we have the digital student card, so this works in a similar fashion to your boarding pass. So essentially you can use this to scan your way into buildings, you can use it to get printing credits, and also the institutions that have done it have spoken to the bars in town and things, and the shops in town, so that the students can still get their discounts through it as well. Gamification is adding a bit of fun to the application, so if the student's using it last thing in the evening, they get the night owl badge, first thing in the morning, the early bird badge, they can share these with their friends, and it's just trying to sort of add a bit of fun to their educational experience. But also the personalisation of this is huge, so you can get a notification to say your new economics grade is available, for example, or your lecturer's absent today.
So we provide digital learning solutions for corporate customers. When I say we provide digital learning solutions, in effect what we are providing nowadays are employee development solutions and performance support solutions. We want to help our customers make their employees perform better in the workplace. And we do that through digital delivery, through a platform and content solution, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. And that's how the company started. The company actually started 20 years ago as a training company. So Carlos and Jose are still the founders. They were doing a lot of work with IBM at the time, and we were one of NetX's first IBM certified training companies. We also have an ecosystem, a platform which we call Learning Cloud, which you can see. So on the left-hand side here is our corporate system, and we can take a look at it if we have time. So this is a platform that we deliver into our clients, and this is a platform we use to deliver all of our digital learning solutions. And that's been a very, very successful business for us. Within Spain, we're probably, well, now we were listed, we're the first learning technologies company to be listed, so we're probably the biggest learning technologies provider in Spain. The market valued us today at 16 million euros. Within the UK, it's probably a more mature market. We entered into the UK 5 years ago. I set up the office on my own 5 years ago. We've now got about 8 people, 20 clients, and we've grown to £1 million plus business in the UK in those 5 years. On the right-hand side, and this is what makes NetX relatively unique, is that we also work in what's more commonly known now as EdTech. And that is the use of digital learning solutions in schools, colleges and universities. And NetX entered into the EdTech sector probably about, and you guys will know better than me, 7 or 8 years ago. So when the Spanish economy nosedived and all the companies weren't spending any more money on training their employees, NetX had to diversify to stay afloat. And to do that, we entered into EdTech. And back then, it was primarily as a content digitization partner for educational publishers. We have a smaller number of clients producing more revenue within the EdTech side. And when we talk about EdTech, we're really talking about publishing. And this is because when you start to work with the publishers, firstly they have a lot more content that needs to be digitized, and secondly they're delivering it to a much larger range of students, your typical corporate customer. And within SmartEd, there's really 3 phases. The first is the creation phase, where we're actually working with publishers to help them create this new version of digital content. And NetX the nice thing about Smart Author is that we can ingest existing digital content, and then we can publish it and deliver it with these 5 layers. Now this is where it becomes interesting, because we are now saying that the content isn't just content anymore, but the content can be viewed as a piece of software, and we're embedding 5 layers of technology within the 5 layers of technology within the content. Because what we're trying to do here is make it much more usable within the natural teaching process, and we're really trying to assist teachers and take advantage of the value that digital content can offer. But for this demo, I want to show you Learning Play. So Learning Play, this is the application that we launched within Evans Cycles. So what we're doing here, remember I talked about before about a consumerized approach to learning, so trying to deliver a consumer grade experience. This is Learning Play. So you can see automatically it looks a little bit like a Netflix or a YouTube, so it resonates with learners and it looks like something they want to interact with a little bit more. And what we're talking about here really is that when I log in, I get access to what we call different learning sprints, because as an agile software development company, we're trying to impart this vision of being agile and the different pieces.
mission aligned with us, supporting communities, being collaborative, not being competitive, and trying to sort of provide a support ground for startups. And we back them financially. And then most importantly is we connect them into this global network of other like-minded organizations. So we have 55 partners around the world. So in Europe, we have them in cities like Amsterdam, Stockholm, Dublin, Zurich. We have them as far away as in Karachi, Pakistan, Sydney, Australia, a network of partners in the United States, in Mexico, Argentina. Many of the partners that we work with are quite similar to campus. So they're spaces like this. We call them tech hubs, which is to say they're more than just a co-working space. They're more than just a place where people might come, and if you're an entrepreneur in a campus or in one of our Google for Entrepreneurs partner spaces, say in Astrolabs in Dubai, you have access to a specific set of programs just for our network. One of which is called Black Box Connect. It's a 2-week immersion program in Silicon Valley. I think there's 2 companies that are coming from Campus Madrid in the end of November. They'll get expenses paid, go to Silicon Valley, 2 weeks of a boot camp where it's what's the Silicon Valley culture, how are tech companies being built there, who are the people that you need to know to meet there, etc. And it's all for international founders with the goal that they will go back to where they're building their company with that mindset and that enthusiasm to build global companies from any city in the world. People can use the space for free, they apply to us online. We have an events coordinator who just checks those at their quality events, that they're for startups, etc. So this is what you're seeing here. You can see some of the programs we run. Campus for Mums here, a startup school for parents who are founders who happen to be parents. And then the most important part, you can see some of the stories. You know, the numbers are very great, but it's about the individual stories, the people that we sort of help support.
We decided after the Olympics we'll bring businesses upon business with the community, bring jobs in and connect with everyone throughout the world, the European continent, making sure that everyone's connected. It's data,
digital hub really.
Yes. And it's across the board. So we've got the universities in, UCL, Loughborough University, we've got BT Sports, we've got matchesfashion.com coming in, Ford autonomous vehicles.
So like I said before, they're building the cultural quarter and they have lots of different companies that are coming. So they have a Wind River Gas Studio here, but they also have Sadler's Wells, which is coming, which does immersive experiences in art and design. They also have the Cancer Research Center, which we don't have on here as well. Cancer Research Center is coming, exactly.
Okay.
And the Smithsonian is coming as well, and then they're going to bring the Victoria and Albert Museums. Victoria and Albert East is coming this way. So as far as residential goes, they have affordable housing schemes that they have. This area is going to be completely transformed within the next 5 years. So you'll see this living wall, which has 4 different species of plants. It has 2,400 in total. And every plant is curated specifically so to take out the toxins and carcinogens specific to this area. This is our digital screen. It has feeds from the news and also our social media channels. It also serves as a directory for Plexel, so you can see the areas in Legacy Place, Monument Square, Second State, Second Park.
Yeah, so essentially, yeah, we're a community and co-working space for people that want to transform education. I guess the thing that makes us different is that we're sector specific. So we're the only co-working space specifically for education companies. The thing that links them is that they all are working within the education sector. It's a real range of companies, from people that have an idea that are trying to get it off the ground, through to people that are working on it 1 day a week and they use the space for pop desking, through to our biggest company, which is 30, and they have a private office down the end. And it's a real range of education as well. We've got companies that run educational programs in schools, we've got educational charities, we've got edtech companies, and that's from early years all the way through to adult and lifelong learning. It's a really, really broad sphere. When we say education, it encompasses so many different things. Our history, I guess the best place to start is in 2012, which is when Emerge Education, who run the Accelerator program, were founded. And essentially the reason that is because the founder of Emerge Education is the person that founded Edspace. Edspace, the idea for Edspace originated with our 4 founders that all worked in education ventures. They're working in a space, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if there was a co-working space for purely education ventures? And that's when they founded Edspace in 2015. We were originally at a space in Camden, and we moved to where we are now, which is Hackney Community College, which is a school. It's really, really good for us to be based in a school for a number of reasons. First, it gives us great access to teachers and students, where companies can prototype their products. I guess another really good reason is that we get very, very good rent. It's really cheap to be here, and we pass that saving on to our ventures. I think working in the edtech sector in the UK, there's not as much money as other sectors, so we really try and help our ventures by keeping the price of the desks really, really low to give them the best chance of succeeding. We're at 65 startups currently, but what we're really trying to do is to build our network with large government organisations. The Department for Education are very interested in the work that we're doing here. We have connections with learning trusts, so these are organisations that are responsible for hundreds of schools, and other big education organisations like Teach First, which are a big teacher training provider.